Tropical storm Umberto takes shape in the Atlantic. I'll show you where it's headed and who could be impacted.
Helene disaster funding, why North Carolina isn't receiving all of the money it needs to fully rebuild.
Jimmy Kimmel Conflict, the late-night comedian show, was back on the air last night, but only in certain cities. Coming up, we'll go in-depth on why and what a shrinking number of media companies could mean for freedom of speech. Thank you for joining us here at 7 o'clock. I'm Dan Haggerty. We got a pair of big weather stories that we need to talk about tonight. First up, are the plants in your lawn dying for some rain right now? Are they dying, and do they need rain? How about that? Well, this is the storm system coming our way right now, and it could be here as soon as tomorrow afternoon. Then there is the even bigger storm out in the Atlantic Ocean right now. This is Umberto, and that is headed our way into this direction as well. Kat Campbell joining us now. What do we know about these systems, Kat?
We've got a lot to watch, and the bottom line is that bare minimum, we should be able to tap into some of that tropical moisture as we head into the end of the week and the weekend. So we need some rain, and we're going to get it. The first system that brings us rain is this front. It's a slow mover, likely to drag some rain and storms our way tomorrow. There's actually a little bit of rain tonight in Mecklenburg County, Virginia, and in Carr Lake, but that's it on the dual Doppler 5000 radar for now. Tomorrow, the front crosses over the mountains, and ahead of it, it's hot and humid. That amounts to storm fuel, and there could be an isolated severe storm with strong winds. Storm chances start to climb during the afternoon. There could be around early in the afternoon, but the best chance comes tomorrow night, likely around and after sunset. Let's talk tropics. Two potential systems out there. Umberto is already a tropical storm. Imelda could form soon. It's already bringing some rain to Puerto Rico. Umberto is forecast to strengthen into a Category 2 hurricane by the end of the weekend and early next week. Here are the tropical model plots. Something to note, if Umberto is able to stay a lot stronger than this one, it may actually absorb the weaker one. But if they are both about the same strength, they could affect the steering currents. Still more concerned with the one that hasn't gotten a name just yet for potential impacts here at home. We'll be watching that closely for you through the end of the week. There are a lot of questions about weekend plans and Football Friday. I'll have high-resolution feature cast for tomorrow and Friday coming up.
All right, talk to you then. Thank you, Kat. Not enough money, and money that isn't coming fast enough. That is the problem facing people working to help North Carolina rebuild after Hurricane Helene. Now, the state says we need $60 billion to fully recover, but we have a long way to go to reach that number. WRAL's Destiny Patterson was at the state legislature today, where lawmakers and people leading the recovery are trying to figure out how to fill the gaps.
These North Carolina communities hit hardest by Hurricane Helene have come so far.
But it looked like a bomb hit in every community we had.
But there's still a long way to go. Yancey County Manager Lynn Austin came to the State House to share the struggles they're still dealing with now, from housing to debris removal.
Time is money for us, and time means people's health.
The state estimates that Helene caused about $60 billion in damage in North Carolina. The state requested a little less than half of that from the federal government, which comes to about $28 billion. But the state says the feds have only approved about $5 billion. That's far less than what FEMA has approved for past storms. And even with insurance money and state money, that leaves North Carolina with more than $44 billion unfunded.
Right now, we're trying our best to maximize federal resources that are in theory available, but we are facing headwinds.
FEMA has to follow a new approval process, which is part of the reason for the holdup, but that also slows down recovery efforts in the areas hit hardest by the storm.
There's no reason for you to continue that burden as counties, and so when we can put that money out and receive it back whenever FEMA gets off their derriere.
Nonprofits stepped in, filling the gap for communities in need, and that led state lawmakers to talk about other options for rebuilding.
We're going to help these families as long as we can and walk beside them.
Samaritan's Purse has been able to rebuild dozens of homes since the storm because they're not relying on government money.
We do not want any government funding. That's no red tape, no restrictions, no reporting.
I wish that government could move at the speed that you and the other relief organizations do.
Lawmakers seemed open to the idea of alternatives. In the meantime, communities are trying to stay optimistic that more relief will come.
Main goal is just work together as one to help these people.
We haven't immediately heard back from FEMA. Speaking near Charlotte today, Vice President J.D. Vance says that the administration is working on it. Destiny Patterson, WRAL News, Raleigh.
And don't miss WRAL's new documentary, Helene, What We Lost, What We Found, sponsored by the Triangle Community Foundation. It airs tomorrow at 7:30 on WRAL. You can also stream it on WRAL.com and our YouTube channel. So if you're just getting to the news tonight, let's get you all caught up. These are the 5 things you should know right now. Vice President J.D. Vance visited North Carolina today. He was in Concord talking about the recent stabbing death on a train in Charlotte. A major focus of his 30-minute speech was on supporting law enforcement. WRAL asked Vice President Vance about what the administration is doing to speed up the distribution of relief funding in Western North Carolina also. He argues they inherited a FEMA with problems and says they continue to work on issues. Negotiations between WakeMed and United Healthcare have stalled. WakeMed says that they are concerned about United denying reimbursements to patients. United says they are committed to reaching an agreement here. We do have a full statement from both organizations and some more background on this important conversation and this dispute over on WRAL.com. A group in Rocky Mount donated metal detector wands to the Edgecombe County Sheriff's Office, hoping to improve safety at football games. Earlier this month, the video you see here, after shots were fired at a Southwest Edgecombe football game, 2 teenagers hurt in that situation. The school did have metal detectors at that game. A 17-year-old was arrested in connection with the shooting. Today, Fujifilm cut the ribbon on its new $3 billion drug manufacturing site in Holly Springs. The facility there will make drugs that treat autoimmune disorders and cancer. The company has also filled nearly half of the 1,400 jobs it plans to create. The facility should start producing its first products, they say, by the end of the year. And a quick 2-for-1 here on a pair of brush fires in our area. This one in Fayetteville near Rayford Road. Crews got to this fire, got it under control, and are double checking some hot spots. Then we have one over in Garner. Fire and Forest Service crews responded to the intersection of East Garner Road and Jones Sausage Road. They say the fire has flared up a couple of times over the past couple of days. We'll keep an eye on everything. So Jimmy Kimmel made his return to ABC last night, but not everyone was able to tune in. 70 cities still aren't getting his show. The reason why goes beyond President Trump and freedom of speech. It's about corporate media and control. Let's go in depth after the break. Jimmy Kimmel was back on ABC last night. Here's how he addressed his previous comments that got him kicked off the air for a few days.
But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. But I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way.
Analysts think that his ratings were big last night, at least in the cities that could actually see him. Much of the country could not. That's because Nexstar and Sinclair decided to continue their boycott. Just a reminder, who is Nexstar? Who is Sinclair? Well, they're the 2 biggest local media ownership groups in the country. Nexstar owns 200 stations. Sinclair owns 185. Remember, the big networks don't actually own and operate every local station in the country. You can take WRAL, for instance. We are on NBC and on Fox, but we aren't run by NBC or Fox. They don't carry us. We carry them. And it's the same story for the 385 stations owned by Nexstar in Sinclair. This map here shows the 70 ABC stations owned by those 2 companies, representing 70 cities that couldn't tune in last night to see what Kimmel had to say. You see, lots of the attention from this story, from this situation, have been on ABC because we think of them as the big dog. You know, it's Disney, Marvel, ESPN, Hulu, Star Wars, Pixar. It's Mickey Mouse and overpriced cruises. But in terms of local media reach, they're a bit of a distraction from the real story. Now, most of you think the real story is Trump, and it's hard not to focus on that part of it. He has tried to silence Kimmel and other comedians and other networks and news outlets. In August, he called for the FCC to revoke ABC and NBC's broadcast licenses. In February, he kicked the Associated Press out of the White House press pool because they wouldn't use the term Gulf of America. In January, Trump posted on Truth Social upset about criticism from Seth Meyers. He said Comcast and NBC would, quote, pay a big price for this. And Trump took to Truth Social again last night after Kimmel's show. He wrote, Kimmel puts the network in jeopardy by playing 99% positive Democrat garbage. He is yet another arm of the DNC. And to the best of my knowledge, that would be a major illegal campaign contribution. I think we're going to test ABC out on this. Let's see how we do. Last time I went after them, they gave me $16 million. This one sounds even more lucrative. So he is arguing there that by ABC giving Kimmel a platform to speak freely against Republicans and his administration, it amounts to campaign contributions for the Democrats. Now, testing that argument, as he said, would be a novel attack on free speech and our networks. That said, it is clearly a threat, though it's far from the first. You see, networks and outlets have faced threats many times. And while Trump might be the loudest or even the brashest critic of the media, he's certainly not the first president to be vindictive. Richard Nixon famously hated the media, created an enemies list of journalists, political opponents, and celebrities. Tell me if this sounds familiar.
I would have to say that the great majority of those in the media in the Washington press corps, both television and print media, were against me. Now, the reasons for that, I think, are several. One is I'm a conservative, and an effective conservative in their view, and they are liberal.
Nixon actually tried to use the IRS to target and harass journalists who he didn't like. He was heard on a recording telling his chief of staff to, quote, pound these people. But many times, the threats didn't come from the president, much like with Kimmel. They came from the FCC. And in many cases there, the media companies fought back. I mean, notoriously, the career of Howard Stern, a massively popular radio host known for raunchy and sexual content. He was under constant pressure from the FCC. He broke records with fines in the millions, nearly got the license stripped from CBS Radio, but they fought for him. They went to court. They fought for free speech. Sometimes the media companies don't fight back. There are tons of examples of this happening, too. In 1969, CBS canceled the Smothers Brother Comedy Hour after they continued to butt heads with executives for speaking out against the war in Vietnam. In 1997, several ABC stations refused to air Ellen's Coming Out episode. They called it inappropriate content. And maybe the best example, in 2001, several ABC affiliates dropped Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher after his comments about the hijackers following 9/11, calling the U.S. military cowards, statements that eventually led to his cancellation. But I will admit, this does feel different than those examples, and I think I might know why. In 1984, the majority of America's mass media was controlled by roughly 50 independent media companies. 50 different voices, 50 companies balancing coverage and bias, politics, free speech, public trust, and 50 different opinions on how to navigate those values with profit. Today, there are 6, just 6. Here's the list. Industry experts estimate that 90% of the national media market is controlled by these 6 companies. Now, we have seen the same consolidation in local news. In 1984, there were hundreds of local news outlets with different owners. Today, there are just 5 major players, and the top 3 alone control almost half of the market. Why is this? Why did this happen? Well, the short answer is regulation. In 1984, under Reagan, the FCC relaxed the ownership caps. At the time, you could only own 7 stations. They moved that up to 12. In the 90s, under Clinton, they raised the cap again and allowed crossover, meaning you could own a TV station, newspaper, and radio station all in the same market. In the aughts, under Bush, the cap went up again, allowing individual companies to reach up to 39% of households. And in 2017, under Trump, they allowed one company to own the top 2 stations in a single market. So, here we are now in 2025, and number one Nexstar wants to change the rules again. They want to get bigger. They want to buy another one of those top media companies. Number 4, Tegna, meaning that they would grow and then own 264 stations. For that to happen, though, they would need the FCC and Trump. Are you starting to pick up on the possible motivation here? You know, this conversation has revolved around free speech, right? But Kimmel isn't the only one with that freedom. Companies have it too. If Nexstar doesn't want to show Kimmel, they don't have to. They may risk breaking their affiliation agreement with ABC, but if they want to take that stand, they have the right to do so. You don't have to like it, but these companies have a right to speech, to have a voice, and to use that voice to further their values, their business interests, or to close a deal. Doesn't matter. What does matter is that that voice has never been louder or more powerful. This is the primary concern surrounding media consolidation. Orwell, Bradbury, Wells, from Plato to Edward R. Murrow, Jefferson to Roosevelt, all of them warned about this. Think about it. If this were back in the 80s and Nexstar owned 7 stations, not hundreds, would ABC have followed their lead? Would the whole world be paying attention to this? Would the president have leverage? I want to remind you what this consolidation looks like with a video that went viral back in 2018 when Sinclair gave all of its stations the same must-read news promo, a clear demonstration of what media consolidation can look like.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Tell me what you think. I know a lot of you feel passionately about this topic, and I'm glad you do. It is a big one. Give me your thoughts. Email dan@WRAL.com. Tell me what's on your mind, and we'll go in depth.
All right, let's take a closer look at your weekend forecast. A lot happening in the area this weekend, and the heat backs off, but the rain chances are going up. Friday, a 60% chance. Saturday, we are now up to an 80% chance for rain, a 60% chance on Sunday. The bottom line here is we don't yet have high-resolution model data in for your Saturday plans, but I would go ahead and have an indoor backup plan, or if you are definitely going to be outside, maybe you're going to the NC State game like I am, have a poncho. Go ahead, head to the dollar store and buy one. We've got a pretty good chance that you'll see some rain this weekend, and even as we head into the end of the week. Here comes our front. This is what brings the chance for rain tomorrow and Friday. It would be pretty late in the day tomorrow. Let's take a look at futurecasts. Starting out pretty dry in the morning as we head into the afternoon. We see our first batch of scattered storms during the early afternoon. There could be a little bit of a lull in our rain during the evening before storm chances ramp up again tomorrow night as the cold front itself gets closer to us. Then Friday, the front's right overhead, and that's what's likely to generate some showers and storms. We were talking about potentially issuing a WRAL weather alert day for Friday. We're going to wait until tomorrow, get a better look at some of the high-resolution models. It still looks pretty scattered on Futurecast for Friday, but there are storms around during the high school football games, so a heads up to coaches, pay close attention to the forecast. Here's the setup for the weekend. We've got this big dip in the jet stream, potentially a cutoff low. It has counterclockwise wind around it, so this is what it looks like. It swoops up all this tropical moisture and steers it into North Carolina. And boy, do we have a lot of tropical moisture. We have 2 potential systems sitting out in the Atlantic for the weekend and early next week. A live look at the sunset tonight in Wake County. More clouds are moving in. 87 still in the Triangle. We had 95 for the high today at RDU. Record high's 96. We came very close to 88 in Fuquay Arena. 73 tomorrow at the bus stop in the morning. Pretty nice start to the day, but humid. And then once kids head home, there will be a chance for rain as kids are getting off the bus during the afternoon. That chance going up to about 50% by 4 o'clock. And for the tropics, we are closely monitoring Umberto and what could be Imelda. Meteorologist Mike Mays will have a closer look at the new model plots coming up tonight at 11 on WRAL. There will also be a new advisory in for Umberto. 90 degrees, the high tomorrow, and then the heat backs off, but rain chances really start to ramp up. We stay unsettled into the start of next week. Depending on how things play out in the tropics next week, things are looking pretty nice, though, by the time we get to the end and middle of the week. Check that out. By Wednesday night, low temperatures could be dipping back into the upper 50s again. That will finally give us the taste of fall, which we have not really seen since it has actually become fall across the area. Check this out, though. Look at the sunset in Beaufort. It is absolutely gorgeous. You can even see the moon in the distance there. A beautiful end to the day, but things are about to get pretty wet around here. We need it, though.
When it comes to the weekend, when do you think we'll know more about Saturday and Sunday? We got a lot of people looking to do sports with their kids, or maybe going to NC State football, something like that.
Tomorrow we'll get in the high-resolution model data for Saturday, so check in for an update tomorrow on Friday Night Football and Saturday. We'll have that for you, but things are looking pretty wet, especially for the weekend.
All right. Thank you, Kat. So we got our one last thing coming up, a story of resilience in the North Carolina mountains. One store has survived the floodwaters before, 3 times to be exact. That story after the break. One last thing, recovery in western North Carolina still a work in progress after Helene, but for some, they have survived floodwaters before. A store in Avery County put up this sign, 29 years, 3 floods, we're still here. The store is called Pack Rats, and it's true, it survived 3 floods, but Helene was different.
This is normal. It definitely wasn't normal after the flood. My joke is it ain't our first rodeo with floods here, but this was flood number 3. By far the worst. I'm okay. I think standing here in waist deep water, I was fine.
7 months later, and they are back in business. Go give them a visit. Thanks for being with us tonight. Have yourself a great evening.